What's up guys, welcome to today's video, which will be based on the ANTEC AX20. If you remember a couple of days or a week ago, we did a review on the AX90, which is quite a solid case when we're talking about budget and everything concerning. Now, right here we have a quite shorter case, and as you can see, this is it. So what I was waiting and what I did is I had to order a much shorter GPU to place it right here because all the RTX 4000 series are a bit too long to be placed inside here. The standard RTX 3000 series, on the other hand, like 3060 Ti or eventually 3070, could fit inside without any problems, and a couple of those Radeon RX 6650 cards, for instance the one that I had, like Sapphire Nitro Plus, they could fit in without any problems. So what we got here is a much smaller case, definitely budget oriented, but still you get three fans on the front, and that's cool. At the top we have a possibility to basically mount only two 120mm fans. The radiator support on the top isn't supported, basically, but the reason for that is because the motherboard is too high to the top, so you don't have a possibility to mount the motherboard and the radiator just because of the VRM, passive heatsink clearance, and the RAM clearance as well. So you need to take that into consideration. The front can accommodate 280, 240 on the front. If you go with 280, you do have to remove the fans that come inside the case, and that's it. At the back we have a support for 120 fan and more fans, right? Two on the power supply shroud. So basically such a small case can accommodate 8 120mm fans. 3 in front, 2 on top, 1 at the rear, and 2 on the power supply shroud, which is outstanding when we're talking about the size of the case. And that's it when we're talking about this interior. Now, there are loads of holes for cable rerouting. The only thing that is kind of tricky for me, well, not for me personally, but what I would really love to see in cases in general is one thumb screw right here and the tempered glass locks here. But then I don't think we would be on the budget as we are now. So to remove the tempered glass, you need to remove 4 thumb screws on the side of the case, and then be very careful so it doesn't fall down. So you need to gently remove it and place it on the side. Now here at the back, and let's check that out as well, we have a side panel that is very small comparing to the case. Well, basically it is the same thing as the case. You have 2 thumb screws, and you get like a centimeter and a half for cable management. So take that into consideration as well. We get some cables right here, which unfortunately the fans here on front are connected to the Molex cables. So it would be quite a shame to not have a PWM connection. They don't have to be addressable RGB if we're going on a budget. It would be really cool if they were PWM to be able to control them, but we'll get to that part to see if they are loud, because they will be running at 100%. Now here we have, this is the HD audio connection. Then we have the power on, reset switch, power LED and HDD LED. And finally, this is USB 2.0 and USB 3.0. So basically on top what we got is power on button, reset button. We get 2 3.5mm jacks for your audio that concerns like headset and microphone. And you have 2 USB 2.0 and 1 USB 3.0. At the back there is no space to place 2.5-inch SSD, but here in the power supply compartment you have an option to mount a quite shorter, I would say 150mm power supply, and the bracket that can hold up 1 or 2, eventually 2 3.5-inch hard drives, or 1 hard drive and 1 2.5-inch SSD. The case is basically designed for ITX motherboards, micro ATX and ATX. For ATX you do need to place 3 additional standoffs, and that covers up the first part of the holes, which leaves you to the second part. Now the second part might collide with your front radiator. So what we're gonna do here is I'm going to mix it up a bit, since as I stated I had to buy an additional graphic card to be able to place it inside this case, and we're going to go with a combination of AMD processor and Intel graphic cards. I hope it won't have any issues while benchmarking, but I'm going to place a CPU tower cooler from ANTEC, of course, Frigus Air, just because the space here for the 360 or 240 or 280 radiator is a bit trickier. So let's build this case up, check out the thermals and benchmarks and everything. But first of all, the build. Let's go. Okay, so it's still blowing that initial blow when you start up your PC. And the one thing that I have to say right on front, the three 120mm fans that are connected with Molex have been, well, basically they only light up in the colors that you see right here. So we have purple, blue, it's like whole addressable RGB rainbow going throughout, and it doesn't change, it stays like this. So unfortunately, yeah, I think that's where they did the price cut, and this is what happens. But all in all, I placed two of the Fusion fans right here and one at the back, connected everything through addressable RGB, placed the Frigus Air 400 from ANTEC. Right here, the Neo Echo NE850 GM fits perfectly inside, but I do had to reuse the hard drive cage to hide the cables and everything. At the back, we actually have and don't have a lot of cables, but I managed to organize everything properly, so you don't have to worry about that. You just need to be very delicate with those things so you can close the panel properly. But as you can see, I used the Intel ARC A750. We have the AMD Ryzen 5 7600X, and I'm actually quite surprised. I mean, of course, the front fans go 100% constantly, and they aren't that loud. The only fans that create actual noise is the one on Frigus Air and the three here, two on top and one at the rear, because the curve in the BIOS. So there's that. So 100% load on the fans. Eventually, when the load lowers down and the thermal go down on the processor, the fans slow down the RPMs thanks to the BIOS curve. But that's all up to you to decide how you're going to go with. When we're talking about Frigus Air 400, in this case it doesn't fit, but you could do it, and it's all up to you basically, because what happens is the tempered glass is touching the Frigus Air 400, and it's only by 1.5 millimeters, I would say, rough guess. And you could tie up these 4 thumb screws, but I wouldn't push them maximum to it, because it would either the tempered glass would break because of the tension, or something will happen with the CPU tower cooler. So be careful, because we have clearance here up to 155 millimeters. The GPU length is 270 millimeters max. Maximum PSU length is 170 millimeters with hard drive cages. Without, it's 295, even though that kind of power supply doesn't exist. And the whole case is quite light, I would say, because we don't have a thick steel going on the sides, so that kind of also downgrades, well, basically decreases the price. But let's talk about the thermals quickly, and then we'll wrap it up. So we have Intel ARC going up to, it's a 750, so we're going up to 71 degrees Celsius, 158 watts max peak. VRM temperature is going up to 72 degrees Celsius. CPU went up to 89 in AIDA 64 Extreme Edition, with clock speeds going 5450 megahertz, which is outstanding. I mean, I'm shocked with everything that you see, but okay. And then I did standard what I usually do with the AM5 platform, Cinebench R23 10 tests, 90 degrees in all tests, 5250 megahertz clock speed. And what happened here in the benchmarks is the initial, let's say, blow started pushing the processor to the maximum, so it scored 14,876 Cinebench points. Then it repeated with 20 Cinebench points less, and then it dropped by 400. But continuing after that fourth run, continuing to the 10th, we go up to 14,894, which is outstanding. As we've seen in the past benchmarks concerning the AMD platform and the Cinebench, the score went up, which is good. For this case, I think this is good, and we have quite solid thermals. Shame I don't have a possibility to place in a GPU, because this is actually the first time I'm running a benchmark on Intel ARC A750. So comparing it to other GPUs, I would say the thermals are okay. They're not going over 80. This is a 30-minute test rocking the Intel ARC A750 and the 7600X in AIDA 64 Extreme Edition. I would say that's alright. I would say if you're really on a tight budget and you really want to have at least some RGB inside your case, you don't want to control it, or you don't even care about it, or you could just, well, you can't even unplug the addressable RGB, well, the control for the lights, because as the fans are turned on, they immediately light up. So there's that. The front panel actually has a dust filter, which I think it's magnetic. On top you don't have a dust filter, and at the bottom of the power supply shroud you do have a magnetic dust filter. So there's that. I would say quite solid budget case, definitely a budget case. Especially I'm saying solid because it can hold up to 8 120mm fans, or you could eventually swap the front ones into two 140 and just leave out the bottom intake for the power supply. It's all up to you basically, because the power supply is taking air from the bottom. And that's it. Comparing it to the AX90, I would say the AX90 is a much superior case in those terms, and you have more space first of all, and the fans are much better, and you have addressable RGB controller at the back. This one doesn't, so yeah, but that's that. A great budget case, I would say. That's all there is to it. So guys, check the links below. I'll place actually 3 links now for the ANTEC power supply, the Neo Echo NE850 GM, FrigoShare 400, and the star of the show, star of today's video, ANTEC AX20. That's all for today, guys. Hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to, as always, subscribe, hit the like button, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss, well, you already know, future videos, right? Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. Next time, bye bye.